Welcome to week one of the Happy Scrappy Sew Along, Quilt Along, whatever you want to call it. I am so excited to get started. Today we're going to be talking about cutting and arranging our fabric, or separating out our fabrics, however we want to think about that. If you are using pre-cuts like I am, this is a pre-cut 10-inch stacker from Riley Blake Designs. This is the Copacetic fabric collection that I designed for Riley Blake. And if you're using pre-cuts, that's great. Just know that you need 42 squares. So if your bundle has more than 42 squares, that's great. If it has less, then you're going to need either to supplement with some non-pre-cut fabric, some yardage. You can just cut some 10-inch squares, or get another bundle, grab another bundle, and you can go from there. So typically you should be able to find pre-cut bundles that have 42 or more squares in them. And today, so now that they're pre-cut, if you're using yardage, you can just cut out 10-inch squares. So you're going to want, if you're using my collection, the Copacetic collection, there are 21 different prints in this collection. So you want two 10-inch squares of each print. If you're using just scraps, like I have so many scraps in my sewing room. So if I'm pulling from my scraps, same thing, I just need 42 different prints. And you want some kind of contrast between the prints. It's in order to see the definition of the quilt design that we're going to be creating, you want contrast. So try to avoid having everything, say everything the same shade of pink. You know, you want dark and light, and some different colors would be great. So you want some contrast going on. You can also use 5-inch, pre-cut 5-inch bundles. Again, you're going to need 42 squares or more. If you wanted to do a throw size quilt, which I'm doing with my 10-inch bundle, and you wanted to do it with 5-inch squares, you can. You just need a lot more. So just plan for that. Each pairing of squares creates 2 quilt blocks. So keep that in mind as you're planning. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I separate or pair up my squares to create the quilt blocks. So we're going to do that today. We're going to start planning and separating things out. So I'm using the picture of my quilt that I have on my pattern cover. The pattern download for Happy Scrappy Quilt is in my shop at bayhillstudio.com, and it's free. This is a free download. So don't hesitate to download that. This is such a beginner, easy quilt, and I want everyone to be able to have this, especially if you are new to quilting. And so for the first pairing, I'm taking the Blueberry Main Flower print, and I'm going to pair it with the Strawberry Fusion. So I'm just putting the right sides together, and then I'm just going to set it aside. And then I'm going to repeat, same exact pairing. I have 2 of each print, remember? So in this 42-inch stacker, it contains 2 of every single design. So in the end, we're not going to have be able to do 2 of exactly every single one, and you'll see why, because we'll have an odd number at the end, but we'll get close. And we can always, you can pair things up and then you can rearrange them later if you don't like them. So you're not stuck with your decisions. You can follow the quilt pattern, and I don't even think I'm going to follow this exactly, but it's a good guideline to start with. And so now I'm going to do the Strawberry Main and this Blackberry Gingham together. And again, just put them together, right sides together, and set them aside. And I will do one more, and then I'll speed this up for you. So the next one I'm going to do is, let's see, we'll do this Blueberry Fizz with the Persimmon Starflower. So you can see these have, let me put one down, really nice contrast, and that's what I'm going for. And I will say you're not always going to manage to get good contrast, and that's okay. Some of them, let me show you in my design here. This looks like it's got a lot of good contrast, but when we get closer, here you can see I've got this multi-salad print with the navy blue starflower. That's not a lot of contrast. Some of my prints, like my multi-prints, they go either way. They can be considered a light fabric or a dark fabric. And so they don't provide a lot of contrast, but because everything else has good contrast, they can kind of squeeze in there and be okay. Let me see if I've got another one for you. Not really finding, oh, here. So now we've got the blue salad print with the apple fusion. And again, not a lot of contrast in color, but it works. And the reason why actually, I should point out, the reason why it works is because you do have contrast in scale. This is really, this one is really busy, and this is more solid, more of a blender. And so they don't compete with each other. Same with these. This has a tiny little flower print, but it's not as busy as this one. And so they don't compete with each other. So they provide contrast that way. So your eye still sees contrast. And so if you don't have, if you're using similar colors, make sure the prints are completely different in scale. Like one needs to be almost solid or really small scale, and the other needs to have a bigger scale print. These are contrasting in color, but you can also see them contrasting in scale, and that's what I'm talking about. So that's a couple of tips for planning. And I think what I'm going to do now is, let me just do one more, and then I'm going to speed this up for you. The final one before I speed it up, I'm going to just do this blueberry fusion and the strawberry flower pie. So there's one more, and again, I'm just matching up the exact same ones. And then after you get them all matched up, if you, again, you can switch them around. So I'm going to now speed this up for you. I don't know if you noticed, but I set aside this pairing, which are very similar. And so I knew this is one that I could split apart, because at the end, I knew I would come up with just an odd little couple pieces that needed a different pairing. So I'm going to break these up, and well, I can't actually, hold on. Let's take, I saw another one. So I'm going to kind of shake these all up, because I can't have, I don't want two of the fizz together. So I will put this lime together. Let's see how this works. And the navy, that's really cute. I love navy and pink, the navy and strawberry here. And then I've got the blueberry salad and the strawberry fizz. And so we are all set. So I've got all my pairings. And again, you can arrange these any way you want. And now we are set to go for next week. Before I sign off, I just wanted to go over our schedule, upcoming schedule real quick. And please excuse my very messy sewing space. This is pretty much how it is all the time. I clean it up once in a while, and the next day it'll be back to a disaster zone. So that's the life of someone who likes to be in here a lot, who likes to sew. Let's talk about our schedule for our Happy Scrappy Quilt Along. We completed day 1. That's today. We got our squares cut, unless you're using pre-cuts. Woo-woo! Then they are already cut for you. So we're using either 5-inch squares or 10-inch squares. And for either 5-inch is a baby size quilt, or you could use a ton of 5-inch squares and make a bigger quilt. You could make a throw size quilt. You could just keep going and going. Or you can use, for our throw size quilt, we're using one 10-inch stacker. And you can easily do this scrappy with random scraps. In fact, I'll probably do that after this. Make a really super scrappy one because I have a ton of fabric that needs to get used. So I would love a scrap buster project in addition to this. So we've got our pairings. We've paired all of our fabrics with some bit of contrast, and we are ready to go. So that was an easy week, an easy intro to this sew along. Week 2, we're going to be sewing our blocks. It's going to be really straightforward and simple. Well, once I sew 1 or 2, you'll have a hang of it, but we're just going to go through and sew all of our blocks. Week 3, we're going to take those blocks and assemble them into rows. And I'm literally just going to lay them out on my floor back here. Nothing fancy, or maybe my kitchen floor. Wherever you have space, you're going to lay out your blocks. And then we're going to talk about arranging the blocks into different arrangements. So in the pattern, I give 3 different ways that the blocks can be arranged to give you a different finished look on your quilt, and we'll talk about that and how easily that can be done. Week 4, this is for if you ended up having to go out of town, or life events happen and we didn't finish week 3. Week 4 is a catch-up week. You can catch up from any of the previous weeks, and we're just going to add the borders to the quilt. So super easy and mellow week. Week 5 and 6 you can skip. If you are sending your quilt top off to a professional quilter, do that. If you are want to finish your quilt from beginning to end at home, then you're going to want to be here for week 5. We're going to talk about basting the quilt, and I will show you how I baste my quilts and other options for people who prefer different ways of bastings. There's no one way to do it. Everyone has their preferred method. Week 6 is also optional. If you're sending it off to be your quilt top off to be professionally quilted, you can skip this one. We are going to be machine quilting. Here, I'm going to show you how I machine quilt. And this is one that I would say if you have a really entry-level, inexpensive sewing machine, it might not be able to handle machine quilting, and it might not even be designed to do any machine quilting. And so we'll talk about that and the importance of the type of machine you have. An entry-level machine might be able to handle a baby quilt. It really depends on your machine and its condition and tension and all the things. Those can be really fussy, and so we'll talk about that. Week 7 is our final week, and if you sent your quilt top off to a professional quilter, you'll have it back and you'll want to participate in week 7. We're going to be binding the quilt, and I machine bind all my quilts. So I'm going to be machine binding and show you how I do that, but I'll also talk about how people hand bind their quilts. I don't like to do that. That takes way too much time and patience, but some people, that's the only way they do it, and it's a beautiful finish. And so we'll talk about that. So that's it for today. I am so glad that you joined me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.